Oh yeah! Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm in my living room and I have two bikes here. My plan is I want to compare these two bikes so I can explain a little bit of difference between like a DJ bike, and then the one next to it is the low side, which can also be converted as a DJ bike, but the low side has bigger wheels, 27.5 plus, and this has 26-inch wheels. And so I'm just going to explain a little bit difference of why one bike might handle differently than the other. Mostly two factors that are going to come into play with this is bottom bracket height and rear end length. The height of the handlebars also makes a bit of a difference, and I'll explain that also. So let's see if I can pull this off. So on a 26-inch DJ, what you'll mostly see is how compact everything is. You're going to have a low frame, but something to really look for is look at how close the tire is to the seat tube, and I've even seen them closer than this. But the idea is your chainstay, which is the measurement from your axle to the center of your crank spindle, is going to determine your rear end length, and then your bottom bracket height also plays a role. So you have to realize anytime you're doing a wheelie, bunny hopping, manualing, going off jumps, this access point of where the rear axle is where everything's gonna pivot. So when you bunny hop, you pull up the front wheel and then you pull up the back wheel, and that pivot point and all these factors are going to determine how easy is it to pull up the front wheel, right? So if you raise the bottom bracket, you get the rider's overall center of gravity higher, which is going to make it easier to pull up the front wheel. When you shorten this, it makes it easier to pull up the front wheel. As you lengthen the rear end, it actually gets harder to pull up the front wheel because you have a larger lever. But these two factors, bottom bracket height and chainstay length, work together to come up with a certain feel for how you want a bike to ride. Now we're going to come over here to the low side. Keep in mind that this is a bigger outside diameter of the wheel. So 27.5 plus, so this is going to be close to 29 inches or about 29-inch outside diameter. And you have a similar thing. You have your chainstay length, and the seat tube is pretty close, not as close as the Haro that we just looked at. But there's also bottom bracket height, and those things play a role. So because this is a larger wheel and it has to fit in here, the length from here to here is going to be longer. That's going to make it harder to pull up the front wheel because your lever is longer and the center of gravity of the rider is going to be roughly the same, maybe just a little bit higher than you would on the dirt jump bike. So as wheels get bigger and chainstays get longer, then you need to adjust the bottom bracket height, manufacturers do, to get the feel that they want. A higher bottom bracket height will make the front end come up easier. Lower bottom bracket height will make it a little more challenging because you have more of a range to go to get up to that balance point. So there's a whole bunch of, like, what do you want to call it, science behind this, or engineering on that kind of stuff. Sometimes you want a lower bottom bracket height because that gives the bike more stability and things like that. So it just depends on what you want out of a bike. Let's talk a little bit about handlebar rise and where that plays a role. As you can see, I have quite a bit higher rise handlebars. I don't know what this is. These are older handlebars. I want to say this is 40 millimeter rise. But getting a higher rise handlebar, if you're sitting on the bike, puts the rider's bike further back. The rider's bike, the rider's weight further back. And so by getting your weight further back towards the rear of the bike, it's going to make the front end easier. So if you lower your handlebars, have a lower stem or whatever combination, fewer spacers, whatever you do to have a lower handlebar, it's going to be more of an effort to pull up the front end because your weight's going to be further forward towards the front end. So if you want the front end to come up easier, you want a taller bar. Come over here to the low side, and these are quite a bit taller than what's over there on the Haro. Again, I don't know what these are, but they're pretty tall for this style of bike. And you notice I have them angled back to match kind of the fork angle. That is going to make the front end easier to pull up on this bike. So having a taller handlebar on the low side possibly could make the front end come up and compensate for the larger wheel diameter and the longer chainstay length. So there's kind of a whole science to all of this, but there's definitely a big difference when people say, oh, I want to jump a certain bike. You know, if you have more of a cross-country style mountain bike, has a tall frame, there's more space between the wheel and the seat tube, and even more so, a longer stem and a lower handlebar, that bike is not going to handle jumps very easily because it's all kind of counterproductive to getting the front wheel up and getting that pop that you need to go off of jumps. So there's really a pretty big difference between geometry of a bike that is designed for jumping versus a bike that is designed for climbing and speed and all that stuff. So that's really all I wanted to cover in this video. I'm actually going to do this video separate from my next video. So my next video is, and I'm going to actually do it today, so I don't know if I'll just do these back to back or what. My next video, I'm going to take this bike because somebody mentioned in the comments they wanted to see me ride my low side. I'm going to take this bike and go off, if I look out my front window, my jump there. So as long as it doesn't rain, I'll go ahead and do that. Looks like it might. I looked at radar, there's some spotted rain out there, but I can always jump between the raindrops too. So that is a little bit about bike geometry that you might not have known. Hopefully it helps you kind of pick out what you want for riding and the kind of riding you want to do. I'll talk a little bit about geometry kind of on my Ibis Ripmo AF, which is kind of a whole different ball game compared to hardtails. But I still have my Heller Berghest, and so I can kind of compare those two bikes and show the difference in geometry because they're drastically different. That'll be in another video. Thanks for watching, and after this video, hopefully I'll have another one, at least, if not today, within a day or so, of me jumping these bigger bikes on my ramp in my front yard to see how they handle. Thanks for watching.